What's up, Chiefs Kingdom? Noah Gray here, tight end for the Kansas City Chiefs. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe to Josh's channel and check out showmefootball.com for more.
Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to another video on my channel. My name is Josh Fan of showmefootball.com and arrowheadaddict.com. And Chiefs Kingdom, I gotta go on a rant today. I got something I need to talk to you all about. And I wanted to make a video on this last week, wanted to make a video on it the week before that, and I just never got around to it. And then I decided, you know what, the topic's not really hot anymore. And then I saw more people saying the same thing again, so I just have to make a video about it, or else it's just going to be on my mind until I get it done. So there are an alarming amount of Chiefs fans that want to see this team trade Chris Jones or entertain the possibility of trading Chris Jones this offseason. And I am here to tell people that that is asinine. Now, I am not saying that it is impossible that the Chiefs consider trading Chris Jones. In fact, I'm sure they've had discussions about it internally. But I mean, that's not saying much. I mean, they explore all options on just about every single player on the team. Nonetheless, it's not impossible that they trade Chris Jones, but I would strongly disagree with it if they did. And I strongly disagree with Chiefs fans saying that Chris Jones is a trade that should be explored this offseason, and I'm here to argue with fans that think it is a good idea. The talk about trading Chris Jones actually goes back to a couple years ago, or even really just last year, after the AFC Championship game loss, in which the pass rush was a huge disappointment and Chris Jones didn't have any sacks in that game. And, you know, the stat was being floated around that Chris Jones has 0 playoff sacks in his career in Kansas City. And while that stat is true and you can see why it would be discouraging, I always thought it was disingenuous to say that about Chris Jones because it is not a reflection of his playoff performance. You can still affect the game without having sacks. And people that say he has 0 playoff sacks, well, they're not considering the fact that he had a clutch batted down pass in Super Bowl 54 when the Chiefs won. They're not including the fact that he's been the top pressure getter among the defensive line every single year in the postseason for the last several years. Chris Jones is a game wrecker. And even when he's not getting sacks, he's still being involved in the pass rush. Now, a lot of people are frustrated because, well, you look at what happened against the Bengals. He had Joe Burrow in his grasp and somehow lost him. And if he brings him down, the Chiefs very well may have won that game. But I've always said that Chris Jones is the only guy on this defensive line that is a consistent threat. And people love to complain about Chris Jones when the pass rush isn't doing well. It's funny. When the pass rush does well, it almost always does well because of Chris Jones. But when it doesn't do well, the first person that people point to and want to complain about is Chris Jones. And that's always been odd to me. And yeah, this pass rush, for the most part, for the majority of the time that Chris Jones has been here, the pass rush has been when Chris Jones is going, so is the pass rush. And it's because the Chiefs haven't really done a great job of addressing the edge position since Chris Jones has been here. You know, since the year that they let Justin Houston and Dee Ford go in the offseason, it's been overpaying for Frank Clark, and that is, well, okay, so it really all starts with overpaying for Frank Clark, because when they did that, they sunk so much capital into one guy in Frank Clark. They traded a first-round pick. They traded a second-round pick or a third-round pick, whatever the other pick was, and they paid $100 million for him, and he ended up being a total dud. And when you do that and you have this big albatross of a contract, you're really kind of stuck with it, and the Chiefs have just been hoping and praying that Frank Clark can produce for them again, and they've tried to sign other low-level free agents hoping that they can give them something, and they've been able to get by a little bit, and the addition for Melvin Ingram was nice, and Veach found a gem in Emmanuel Ogbah that one year he was here, the year the Chiefs won the Super Bowl. But, I mean, they haven't been able to find anybody consistent that can be a true pass rush partner for Chris Jones. In an ideal world, if you have 2 top 20, 25 pass rushers like the Chiefs were hoping they would have with Chris Jones and Frank Clark, your pass rush is pretty much taken care of. You can have Jimmy and Joe on the other side of the defensive line, and as long as you have 2 top 25 pass rushers, I mean, you're really set. But since it's really just been Chris Jones and a bunch of guys for the last several years, Chris Jones has gotten a lot of unfair flack because he's doing all the heavy lifting of the pass rush or for the pass rush, and he has little to no help. But people like to blame Chris Jones when the pass rush is non-existent, even though Chris Jones has been one of the most double-teamed defensive linemen in all of football. And even despite that, he finished number one among all defensive tackles this year in pass rush win rate. But I've been rambling for a minute now. I've given you some context. So why do Chiefs fans want to trade Chris Jones, and why would that be dumb? Let's start with why Chiefs fans want to trade Chris Jones. Chiefs fans are interested in trading Chris Jones, one, because he'll have to be extended here pretty soon, and yes, he's going to cost a lot of money. And Chiefs fans saw what this front office did with Tyreek Hill and the draft pick haul that they were able to get for him, and they think, well, the team was still really successful even after the Tyreek Hill trade. They got all these assets, so maybe we could just try it with Chris Jones again and save some money. Especially since, Chris Jones, I mean, it's not like he's old, but if they give him an extension, they're going to be paying him into his mid-30s, so let's look into trading Chris Jones. Those are just some of the reasons that I've seen that Chiefs fans would like to trade Chris Jones, and it's just really a common sense conclusion. Now, why it's dumb to even think about trading Chris Jones. When the Chiefs traded Tyreek Hill, before that, they were planning to keep him. They were going to pay Tyreek Hill. The Chiefs wanted to keep Tyreek Hill on this team. And then Tyreek Hill asked for record-setting money for the position, okay? And that's when the Chiefs said, you know what? We're going to look at trading you. I don't think Chris Jones is going to want record-setting money at defensive tackle. I don't think that's what it's going to take if the Chiefs are going to extend him. Secondly, the Tyreek Hill trade was a lot easier to do because there are so many good receivers, and you can find decent receivers really anywhere, anytime to patch up the production that Tyreek Hill, the hole that he left behind when the Chiefs traded him. Defensive tackle, an elite pass rushing defensive tackle like Chris Jones is very, very hard to come by. And yeah, the draft pick haul was cool that the Chiefs got for Tyreek Hill, and they did save some money, but when they did that, they saved money so they could eventually pay for somebody else or keep another player that they wanted. Why can't that player be Chris Jones? The Chiefs traded Tyreek Hill so they can pay players like Chris Jones. The Tyreek Hill trade was just so much easier to pull off for so many reasons, and fans think you can just kind of replicate the same thing with Chris Jones and just keep up this model. And I understand the philosophy and why it's intriguing to Chiefs fans about, trading away players that want a lot of money and kind of reloading a little bit. But the Chiefs are still contenders in the NFL, in the AFC. And they still had that mindset even after they traded Tyreek Hill. But it would be really hard to sell yourself as a contender still if you then decide to trade Chris Jones. Because then at that point, you're just kind of tearing this thing down and slowly closing this current window, hoping that a bigger one opens in the future. Tyreek Hill is a future Hall of Famer, and he is a Hall of Fame talent. Trading him in one offseason is one thing, but trading a second Hall of Famer in Chris Jones, because Chris Jones will walk into the Hall of Fame, trading Hall of Famers in back-to-back offseasons is not a smart move. You want to keep as many Hall of Famers on your team as possible. Hall of Fame type players, franchise cornerstones. The Chiefs didn't want to do that with Tyreek Hill. They decided that ultimately they had to do it with Tyreek Hill. They don't have to do it with Chris Jones. Trading Chris Jones would be something that the Chiefs would do if they really just wanted to get wild. The Tyreek Hill trade was a big risk. It ended up paying off. At least we think so for right now, because the players that they were able to get after trading Tyreek Hill, they looked very promising. But if you trade Chris Jones, you're going to spend, no matter how many draft picks you get, no matter how much money you save when you trade Chris Jones, guess what? You're going to spend the next 10 years looking for another Chris Jones. And guess what? You're not going to find one. And if the Chiefs are to extend Chris Jones, would they be paying him into his mid-30s? Yeah, but defensive tackle is a position that can age pretty well. Fletcher Cox is a little bit older than Chris Jones. He's still a very productive player in this league. Aaron Donald is older than Chris Jones, not by much, but he is older, and he's still an elite defensive tackle. I know he dealt with some injuries this year, the ankle, but when he played, he was still a dominant defensive tackle in this league. I think we still have another good 5 years left of Chris Jones, elite Chris Jones. Extending Chris Jones shouldn't be an issue for this team. It shouldn't even be a second thought. And even for the fans that want to trade him, Chris Jones still has another 2 years left on his contract. Why would they have to trade him this offseason if they really wanted to trade him? Because unless the Chiefs are just so strapped for cash they feel like they have to trade Chris Jones or whatever, there's no reason to do it this offseason. Yes, he needs an extension, but he still has another 2 years left on his deal. So, in conclusion, Chiefs fans are a little too confident that they can just trade whoever they want and it's going to work out for them because it worked for Tyreek Hill. And I'm just saying that is a very risky strategy. I mean, that's something that it was a bold move when the Chiefs did it with Tyreek Hill, but it's not a move that you should constantly be making, especially since a lot of the time draft picks can be lottery tickets. And if they don't work out for you, then the trade could be a total failure. Again, yes, it worked out with Tyreek Hill. At least we think so for right now. But that's not always the case. And really, if you look at Brett Veach's history of addressing the defensive line position, he has struggled. He has really struggled. So if he trades away Chris Jones, guys, I'm afraid of what this defensive line would look like. I mean, think about how long this front office, this organization has worked to get the pass rush to where it's at now. The Chiefs finished second in sacks this year with 55 sacks. I mean, that is fantastic. Yes, they blitzed a lot this year, but the front four really made progress. George Karlaftis made a strong finish towards the end of the regular season. Carlos Dunlap has been a fantastic signing for this team. This organization and front office has worked so hard to get this pass rush to be competent again because the last several years, it was mediocre. It was pitiful, even with Chris Jones. If you're to take Chris Jones off this defensive line, guys, this defense is going to suck. This pass rush is going to suck again. We worked so hard to get this pass rush back to where it is now. Why do we want it to suck again? Why do Chiefs fans actively want this pass rush to suck again? Why do they want this defense to suck again? Because Chris Jones is the Mahomes of the defense. He is the leader of this defense. And I've seen names thrown around that the Chiefs could sign to replace Chris Jones, like Darren Payne from Washington, who is a solid player. And yeah, they could draft a rookie or whatever. Guess what? Those guys aren't Chris Jones. I'm sorry. If your idea for replacing Chris Jones is Darren Payne and a rookie, guess what? You're in for a rude awakening. I mean, I'm sorry. That's just a joke. Chris Jones just had his best season since 2018, tying his career high in sacks with 15 and a half. He was the top finisher and defensive tackle pass rush win rate this year. He posted an above 90 grade in both pass rushing and run defense. He had maybe his most dominant year since he's entered the league. Why do Chiefs fans want to trade that? Chris Jones was also clutch many times this year, getting key sacks down the stretch of games to help lock them up for the Chiefs. So, for Chiefs fans that think trading Chris Jones might be a good idea, I want you to really think about what this defense could look like if you take Chris Jones off of it. Honestly, ask yourself, what will this defense, what will this pass rush, what would this defensive line look like if you took Chris Jones off of it? And what are you realistically getting that is going to replace what Chris Jones gave you? That's all I got for this video, guys. Just wanted to get out my thoughts on that. Please let me know in the comments your thoughts on this. Would love to hear from you guys, as always. But with all that being said, make sure you like, share, and subscribe so more Chiefs fans can find this. And make sure you check out my work on showmefootball.com and arrowheadaddict.com. And I will see you all in the next one. Go Chiefs!